Every time I come out here, Vinny's doing a job and you're holding his hand.
Me and him split everything. We started yesterday.
Get your hands dirty for a change. Do some welding.
After building Orange County Choppers into a TV empire, Paul family war, Teutul Jr. lost everything in a heartbreaking family war. His father demanded $1.5 million from his own son. His brother was forced to choose sides, but there did come that time where you and your dad kind of parted ways. I mean, he fired you. He did at the time. It was really tough, but when I look back, it was the best thing. And when Paul became a father himself, he realized the true cost of their famous feud. I've found a lot of him. Forgiveness and understanding towards my own father because of having my own son today. The man who built America's most famous motorcycles reveals the painful truth behind the cameras and why he hasn't shared a holiday meal with his father in 15 years. Most kids in the mid-80s were busy riding bikes, watching cartoons, or playing Nintendo, but Paul Teutul Jr. had a completely different idea of fun at just early life. 12 years old, he was already working in the heat and noise of Orange County Iron Works while other kids were at the beach. Paul was sweeping metal shavings off workshop floors and running tools to grown men welding steel. Even before that, he used to visit his dad's job site and collect scrap pieces of metal like they were toys. He'd arrange them into little sculptures, dreaming up creations from what others saw as junk. That early exposure shaped everything. By the time he was 14, Paul was already welding with a calm precision that even the seasoned guys respected. He wasn't just picking up skills, he was learning how to think like a builder. But life in the shop wasn't all sparks and glory. His dad, Paul Sr., had a reputation for being intense, and he didn't go easy on his son. In fact, his dad was often harder on him than anyone else. Junior couldn't get away with small mistakes. If something went wrong, he'd get yelled at in front of everyone. Some thought it was unfair, but Sr. believed it would make him stronger. As the years passed, their personalities clashed more and more. I also think that the show did a lot of damage with the family, and Paul Sr. liked brute strength and old-school methods. Paul Jr. had a more artistic eye and preferred clean lines and perfect detail. One summer, Jr. redesigned a railing to make it both stronger and better looking. His dad dismissed it at first, but a few days later, without saying a word, he approved it and used a design. That moment said it all. Deep down, there was respect, but it came with a constant vocational program to go for. While most high schoolers were cramming for math tests, Paul Jr. took a different path. He joined a vocational program that let him spend half his school day learning mental work. He studied welding techniques, blueprints, and how to read the stress points and steel. One of his instructors said he had a rare gift, like he could see how metal wanted to move before even touching it. Jr. spent hours beyond class practicing every weld, every cut, until it felt natural. He knew he didn't need a fancy degree to succeed. He just needed to master his craft. When he returned to his father's shop after graduating, he wasn't the kid sweeping floors anymore. He was a skilled fabricator who spoke the language of the pros and backed it up with results. By 19, Paul Jr. was leading the railing division at Orange County Iron Works. That's not a small job. The department made up nearly half the Orange County Iron Works company's income. Most would assume it was family favoritism, but the truth is Jr. earned it. He expanded their design options and gave the shop a modern edge. His designs were so popular, customers were willing to pay more and wait longer just to get something crafted by him. He also had to manage a crew of workers much older than him. Some of them war veterans, some skeptical at first, but over time, even the toughest ones admitted he knew what he was doing. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking about using an Indian motif? He had taken a metal shop and turned it into something people talked about. That kind of respect doesn't come easy. Still, Orange County Choppers, something was missing. After years of building stays and railings, Jr. felt boxed in. He wanted to build something that moved, something alive. That spark lit up when he started secretly sketching motorcycles in an old notebook after long days at work. Around that time, his dad got back into bikes too. It started casual. Sr. asked Jr. to help him build one, but when Paul Sr. saw what his son had drawn up, it shocked him. It wasn't just technical, it was art. That day, Sr. looked at his son and said, "Let's build bikes for real. Not as a hobby, as a business." It wasn't just about motorcycles, it was about fixing something much bigger. The years of distance between them, with about $175,000 scraped together from the family's ironworks business, they officially launched Orange County Choppers. But it wasn't equal. Sr. kept 80%, Jr. got 20%. It didn't matter yet. They had nothing but a dream and a cold basement full of tools. But within months, the bikes they built started getting noticed. Their first one, True Blue, took them 4 long months, late nights, endless welding, and blue paint with white flames. It looked like it came from a big-time builder, not a frozen garage in upstate New York. When they brought it to Daytona in 1999, jaws dropped. They weren't nobodies anymore, but success didn't come easy. In 2000, they were building bikes in a tiny freezing workshop. Tools broke, suppliers wanted cash up front, money ran out fast. Paul Jr. often worked 18-hour days, sleeping on a couch in the shop just to stay on schedule. They fought constantly, big yelling matches, not for show but for survival. Every bike they sold barely covered costs, yet they kept going, not because they had to but because they couldn't stop. Then in 2002 a phone call came. A TV producer named Craig Pelagian saw a magazine feature on their bikes. He was scouting for a new reality show. When he called, Paul Sr. picked up and barked, "What the hell do you want?" The producer pitched a show about restoring junkyard bikes. Senior shut it down instantly. "We build them from scratch," he said. The family friction deal almost died, but weeks later the producer came back with a better idea, filmed the real process, arguments, and all. Paul Jr. hated the idea. He feared the cameras would ruin everything. He even wrote his dad a 5-page letter saying, "They'll make us look like fools." The contract was insulting, $5,000 per episode, endless camera retakes, and lighting so hot it messed up their welding. At one point, producers suggested calling the show Family Friction. Paul Jr. nearly walked, but they needed the money, so they signed. When American Chopper premiered on March 31st, 2003, no one expected what came next. In just 3 episodes, it exploded. Over 3 million people were watching each week. Suddenly, they weren't just bike builders, they were stars. Their tiny shop turned into a tourist attraction. Merch flew off shelf. Discovery Channel made $13 million in sales in that first season alone. The Teutul's had to move into a massive $12 million facility just to keep up. At first, it was Paul Sr.'s temper that pulled people in, but it was Paul Jr. who kept them watching. Fans didn't care about the drama. They loved watching him build. Jr.'s designs were magic, silent, focused, and precise. In fact, one scene of him building a gas tank with no music or talking became one of the most requested clips ever aired. Welding schools across America saw enrollment spike. They called it the Powell effect. Then came the bike that the Black Widow changed everything. The Black Widow, it wasn't just a bike. It was a statement to spiderweb gas tank, custom wheels, 167 hours of pure craftsmanship. When it was unveiled in New York, 15,000 people packed in to see it. Security had to hold the crowd back. Soon they were selling model kits, shirts, video games, you name it. Over 280,000 model kits sold in 6 months. It made OC a brand, not just a shop. When Paul Jr. finished building the Firebike in June 2003, it wasn't just another chopper. It was a turning point in his career. He wasn't just making a motorcycle, he was building a tribute to the firefighters who lost their lives on September 11th, and that meant every part of the bike had to carry meaning. One of the most powerful details was a real piece of steel from the wreckage of the World Trade Center. Paul didn't hand that off to someone else, he welded it on himself. The jagged piece of metal was attached to a diamond plate bracket he made just for this bike. It was the final piece and the most emotional, but that wasn't the only challenge. The design was so ambitious that he had to completely redesigned the bike's frame. It needed to support 343 hand-painted emblems, one for each firefighter who died. That kind of weight, both literal and symbolic, required serious engineering. And when the bike got into an accident the next year, the New York Fire Department didn't treat it like a normal crash. They responded personally, carefully recovering the damaged bike like it was a fallen comrade. That's how much it meant. Even now, it sits in OC's museum. It's been to over 248 events. People still show up, get tribute, bike too emotional, and leave personal notes and tributes beside it. Years later, Paul Jr. would revisit the pain and power of 9/11 with another project, a second tribute bike. This one was unveiled on January 20th, 2011, and the reaction was overwhelming. It wasn't just bikers who showed up, it brought together people like New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg and the president of the 911 Memorial. Paul had been asked by Daniel R. Tishman, a board member of the memorial, to build something unforgettable, and he delivered not just one bike but two. One stayed as a tribute, the other was raffled to raise money for the memorial. People bought tickets online and in person, and all the money went straight to support the 9/11 museum. That day, when the cover came off the bike, people cried. Grown men, families, tourists, everyone was hit by the emotional weight of what that machine represented. The design told a story without saying a word. Even the Huffington Post ran a full feature on it, spreading the message to people who couldn't be there. But behind the flashy paint and polished chrome was something even more impressive: his technical mind. Paul Jr. wasn't just designing pretty bikes. In 2012, he quietly introduced a game-changing technique into the motorcycle world. He began using T-spling, a tool that made it easier to design smooth, curved shapes. What used to take over 40 hours now took just 15. When he built an electric bike with Autodesk, that method was essential. Soon other shops started using the same technique, often without realizing where it came from or giving credit. Then in 2015, Paul did something that shocked even his team. He created a system that made motorcycle frames lighter but just as strong. It completely changed how they built customs, and he didn't stop there. He taught himself how to write G-code, the programming language for CNC machines. Before, he was just the guy designing the bike. Now he could control the machines too. He went from artist to the trouble between Paul Teutul Sr. and his son machinist, handling both the creative and technical sides of the build. The trouble between Paul Teutul Sr. and his son didn't explode overnight. It started quietly in 2007 when Sr. gave Jr. a 20% stake in their company, but kept full control for himself. At first it looked like a fair setup. Father runs the business, son brings the style. But as Jr.'s designs became more famous and grabbed headlines, the balance started to tip. People weren't praising Senior's old-school craftsmanship anymore. They were talking about Junior's wild ideas, and that didn't sit well with the man who built Orange County choppers from the ground up. Behind the scenes, jealousy took root. Senior's grip tightened every time Junior came in late or worked in his own way. It lit a fuse, and the longer it burned, the harder it was to put out. The shop turned into a war zone. By 2008, the shop had turned into a war zone. Fights between father and son weren't rare, they were routine. Most of it was about control. Junior wanted freedom to create, Senior wanted obedience. It was a clash of world creative spirit versus hard-nosed discipline. The cameras on American Chopper caught some of it, but they missed the worst. When the lights went off, Senior got meaner, not just with Junior. Jason, a designer, once smashed his own creation to bits after one of Senior's tirades. Everyone in the shop walked on eggshells, even Mikey, the goofy peacekeeping younger brother, couldn't escape the emotional wreckage. He looked broken, like years of being shouted down had finally caught up to him. And then came the blow-up. September 2008, Junior was late again, and Senior snapped. What should have been a warning turned into a screaming match in front of the entire crew. I want to be around my the blow-up father, but coming out of that unhealthy dynamic, I was able to grow spiritually, emotionally, and just on every level, because I kind of came out from under my father, and then I just became my own guy. When Junior tried to defend himself, saying he always got the job done, Senior refused to hear it. Junior fired back. He said OC would fall apart without him. That was it. Senior blew up, and Junior, fed up beyond reason, hurled a chair across the office and a trash can. He kicked down a door and stormed out. Senior chased after him and fired him on the spot. That chair-throwing moment didn't just break furniture, it shattered whatever was left of their working relationship. Years later, it would become a meme. But at the time, it was a disaster. After the firing, chaos followed. The crew was split. Some backed Junior, others stayed quiet, afraid of Senior's wrath. Customers started worrying, would their bikes still carry the same magic now that the designer behind them was gone? Even the network panicked. TLC gave the lawsuit Junior a warning, saying he had broken his contract by walking off the show. So for a short time, he came back as a contractor, but it didn't last. By April 2009, he was done for good. Senior took it even further. He wanted Junior out of the business completely and moved to buy his 20% stake. When Junior wouldn't sell, Senior filed a lawsuit. The legal mess wasn't just about money, it was about power. Senior wanted total control back. He claimed he had the right to buy out Junior shares for $500,000. Then he added a lawsuit demanding another $1 million in damages. He even made his own company a co-defendant, putting Orange County choppers on both sides of the case. It was a twisted movement to force Junior out completely. But Junior wasn't backing down. The heart of the fight was one badly written contract clause that said Senior could buy Junior's shares at fair market value, but didn't say how to decide what that meant. That vague wording would turn into a bomb in court. The court battle. When the case hit the New York Supreme Court in 2010, the first ruling favored Senior. The judge said the buyout clause was legit and ordered an outside appraiser to set the value of the shares. It looked like Junior was done. They sat in court together, not even looking at each other, but Junior appealed, and in December everything changed. The appellate court reversed the ruling. They said the clause was too vague to enforce. That meant Junior kept his stake, 20% of OC, and Senior couldn't force him out. It was a massive legal win and a personal victory too. The son everyone thought had been crushed was still standing, and his father couldn't get rid of him. You know that the relationship with my father is one of where we're not fighting. That's what I'll say. I mean, are we hanging out? No, we're not really hanging out, so things aren't bad, but they could be better, but that's okay. You know, sometimes these things take time. Still, Junior couldn't build bikes right away. He had a one-year non-compete clause that meant no motorcycle building until 2010, so he pivoted. He started doing product design, including a dog park and a makeover for Coleman's Camping Grill. He said it was one of the hardest times in his life, but he kept going. He and his wife turned a room in their house into an office, hired a young guy for computer work, and launched Paul Jr. Designs right across the street from OC in April 2010. Just as Paul Jr.'s one-year non-compete clause with Orange County Choppers ended, he made a move that no one saw coming. Instead of simply starting his own bike shop, he triggered a full-blown mutiny. People who had been the backbone of OC, guys like Vinny DiMartino, Joe Pulafico, Nub Collard, and even his own brother Mikey, walked away from the company, and Senior versus Junior followed him. It wasn't long before Cody Connolly joined too. This wasn't just a business shift, it was a mass defection, the kind that left Paul Sr. gutted and furious. Discovery Channel didn't waste a second. They turned the fallout into reality TV gold, launching a new series called Senior vs. Junior, pitting father against son in a weekly showdown that blurred the line between family and ratings. The tension between Paul Sr. and Junior wasn't new, but this show made it official. It aired in August 2010, and every episode stoked the fire. While Paul Jr. had doubts about airing their family drama on national television, Paul Sr. leaned into it. The shop battles were designed to be dramatic, and the audience was encouraged to pick sides. One reviewer called it Tantrum TV, and they weren't wrong. The bikes took a backseat to the emotional wreckage. This wasn't just entertainment anymore, this was real pain packaged for public consumption. Still, people couldn't look away in the middle of this chaos. Something unexpected happened. Paul Jr. met Rachel Beast during an episode shoot. She showed up wearing a yellow jumpsuit as the McCuff girl, and something just clicked. What started on a TV set turned into something serious. While lawsuits were flying and the Teutul name was being pulled in every direction, Rachel gave Paul Jr. something solid. She owned her own boutique, had her own career, and soon became the calm in his storm. Through her, Paul found balance and eventually a deeper sense of faith that would reshape everything in his life. Their wedding, held in August 2010, should have been a fresh start. It was beautiful, grand, and even had a 6-tier cake from TLC's Cake Boss. But there was one empty chair. Everyone noticed Paul Sr. didn't come. He'd been invited, but the lawsuits and bitter feelings were still too raw. The fact that his father wasn't there on one of the most important days of his life hit hard. Even with over 100 guests, it felt like someone was missing, and that absence wasn't just personal, it was symbolic of how deep the fracture between them had become. Years passed, but the wounds didn't heal quickly. Then in 2015, Paul Jr. became a father himself. He and Rachel had struggled to conceive, and after nearly 2 years of trying in New York, it finally happened. Oddly enough, during a short trip to Nashville when Hudson was born, Paul Jr. said it changed how he saw everything, especially his own father. Holding his son made him realize what had been lost in all those years of silence and courtroom. For the first time, he began to understand what it meant to be a father and how painful it must have been for his own dad to watch him walk away. Somewhere in between the courtroom drama and televised chaos, Paul Jr. went through healing, a quiet transformation. He started reflecting more deeply, especially on his faith. In an interview, he admitted he wasn't proud of how he had been living, even with Rachel, but that changed after a powerful spiritual retreat. They made a bold choice: no intimacy until marriage. It wasn't easy, but it meant something to both of them. Eventually, he proposed. That same faith carried into their marriage and became a guiding force in Paul Jr.'s life. He even started speaking publicly about it, opening up about his journey and helping others find their own path through hardship. In time, faith gave him the courage to look back and reach out to the man he once couldn't even speak to, not just for himself, but for Hudson, because every time he looked at his son, he saw the cost of staying silent. And that when the healing really began. The battles between Paul Teutul Sr. and his son Paul Jr. were never just about bikes. They were personal, explosive, and deeply emotional. What started as a family business turned into one of the most intense rivalries reality TV had ever seen. Millions of rivalry viewers tune in to watch not just custom motorcycles being built, but a father and son tearing each other apart with every wrench turned. Their biggest face-off came in 2011, when both men entered a televised build-off that showed just how different they had become. Senior went with his usual raw, aggressive style, while Junior built a bike inspired by the P-51 Mustang fighter plane, sleek, creative, and full of soul. That bike didn't just run, it told a story. It was clear Junior wasn't just building machines, he was building statements, and it kept happening. From 2010 to 2016, they clashed in multiple competitions, but Paul Jr. won 5 out of 7 each time, proving he wasn't just a kid working under his dad, he was a force of his own. After leaving Orange County Choppers in 2009, Junior didn't just building an empire start a company he built an empire with a one-year non-compete hanging over him. Most people thought he'd fade away. Instead, he teamed up with Coleman to design a grill, and that pivot kept his business alive during a tough economy. That one deal led to more. He started pitching products, designing dog toys, even building a public dog park. By 2012, his brand was outperforming his dad's. His clothing line made more profit. His bikes were being used in massive corporate campaigns, and he was working with global giants like Blizzard and Paramount. He wasn't just building motorcycles anymore, he was designing for some of the biggest names in entertainment and making serious money doing it. But even the coldest feuds can reunion crack. In December 2011, the death of Helen Teutul, Paul Jr.'s grandmother and Paul Sr.'s mother, created one of the rawest moments the show had ever captured. Jr. picked up the phone and called his dad for the first time in nearly 2 years. They spoke. There wasn't a long conversation, just a few simple words. "She loved you very much. I'm sorry for your loss." On the other end, Senior didn't know how to respond. He admitted he wished it had been in person, but you could hear something shift in his voice. Behind the anger, there was grief and maybe regret. That moment didn't fix everything, but it was something real. The 2018 reunion between Paul Teutul Sr. and Paul Jr. wasn't some emotional family breakthrough. It was a business move, carefully planned and pushed by TV producers hoping to cash in on old drama. The two hadn't said a single word to business move each other in almost 10 years after their explosive fallout in 2009, which ended with Senior firing his son from Orange County Choppers. The silence was deep. So when Discovery Channel proposed a reunion, it wasn't about healing, it was about fixing a broken motorcycle, not a broken family. They picked the Yankees-themed chopper they built back in 2005. It had been sold off and then mysteriously destroyed. Some even whispered it might have been damaged for insurance. That wreck gave the network the perfect excuse to pull them back together. Behind the scenes, it was tense. They had separate shooting schedules, strict rules, and even backup plans in case arguments got out of hand. Senior tried to play it cool, saying they were a little older and a little wiser, but the last ride, everyone knew this wasn't a warm hug kind of reunion. 2 years later came the last ride, a 2-hour special that was supposed to bring closure. Instead, it made everything worse. It started with good intentions, a patriotic bike commissioned by ABC Supply meant to represent family and respect. But from the first day, it was obvious nothing had changed. Senior brushed off his son's ideas just like the old days. Crew members could feel the tension, and all of it was happening while the original OC shop was being torn down in the background. There were brief, powerful moments, Jr. later said. The only times he felt good were when he and his dad actually worked side by side quietly without cameras in their faces, just building like old times. But those moments were rare. When the bike was finished, Senior bluntly admitted he hadn't wanted to do it. "It didn't help our relationship," he said. Fans were furious. Hashtags like Respect Paul Jr. started trending as people called out Senior's cold attitude. Despite what the commercials say, they're not close now. They're not close, not even a little. As of 2025, they live completely separate lives. The only time they talk is when they are forced to buy production contract. From 2018 to 2023, they worked on a few bikes together, but people close to the show say it was all for the cameras. Jr. recently confirmed in a podcast that he and his dad haven't shared a holiday meal in over 15 years, not even after the birth of his son. Their businesses are split too. Senior still runs Orange County Choppers. Jr. built Paul Jr. designs into a $14 million brand, complete with apparel and licensing deals. Both men seem to accept that working together ruined their relationship, and neither one is willing to go back down that road. These days, they exist in the same spotlight, but not in the same world. And now Jr. is ready to talk. In February 2025, he announced a new memoir called Given the Opportunity, coming out in October. But this one won't be a polished, TV-friendly story. Insiders say it'll be raw and brutally honest. It's expected to reveal several incidents that were cut from American Chopper, including a fight in 2008 that nearly turned physical. While his first book focused on his career and faith, this new one dives into the heavy stuff: his father's battles with alcoholism and the lasting damage it did to their family. Jr. said is no longer hiding the truth. He believes sharing it might help others who've lived through similar family struggles.